Wrestling fans, are you ready?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
I am the voice of the voiceless.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Sorry about your damn luck.
I deserve one more match.
It's going to be the end of the world as you know it.
Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant Radio for September 2nd, 2014. I'm your host with the most, Graham G.S. Matthews, once again being joined by @KillByDesign on the Twitter, John Nichols. How's it going today, John?
I don't know why I'm always coming back here, man. I don't know.
Well, it's not two different sittings. I know I said September 2nd, but we're sitting here from the same interview from last week. Well, only actually a few hours later. We didn't record this in the same night.
We got some good night, and now we're up in the morning and getting ready for this part of the podcast.
Well rested, just minutes removed from watching the NWO portion of Legends of Wrestling on the WWE Network. Great episode. Highly recommend going to check it out.
Great stuff, and that Kevin Nash talks about a lot of the stuff from the NWO they don't really get to hear in normal documentaries and even on television.
Also, as well, yeah, the WWE Network overall, great thing. We're not going to talk about it all that much, if at all, because we already talked about it an hour in length on the episode of WrestleRant Radio a couple of months ago. But that being said, this will be the final time we have John on the podcast for quite a while, so we'll be going in depth with a lot of our thoughts. Last time we talked about Bully Ray leaving TNA. We talked about SummerSlam. We talked about the current state of the WWE, that shitty episode of Raw from last week, and a lot more. Today is going to be a little bit different. I want to delve into Kurt Angle going back to the WWE, a topic that I know John really wants to talk about. We're going to be talking about SmackDown going to Thursday nights, and maybe Impact going to Wednesday nights as well. The whole current landscape of wrestling on different nights and such. We're also going to be talking about the new nation of... Oh, actually, we already talked about that last week. Alberto Del Rio, the release of that.
Rey Mysterio,
the Monday Night War show, and much more. So let's kick it off with this, John. @HeelByDesign on the Twitter for all the thoughts. We'll get that plug out of the way right now. We'll continue to plug it over the course of the hour, but @HeelByDesign, you can get all your thoughts on Raw, WWE, TNA, everything. I want to get your thoughts on this, John. Now, last week's episode of Raw, or this week, from when we're taping this, was one of the worst episodes of Raw this year, if not the single worst episode in 2014. Now, usually with the case of those kind of shows, that WWE likes to build up a terrible show only to deliver a shocking, amazing surprise at the end. And that's not always the case. Usually, like at the Raw that we went to, they build up a great episode all night long. But sometimes they pull off like a huge surprise at the end of a show just to make it mean that much more because the rest of the show sucked. So that being said, last night we were hoping, not like realistically, but it would have been amazing had you hear Kurt Angle's music hit the arena, place goes crazy, and it sets up, a Kurt Angle return to the WWE. How possible is that at this point in time? We don't know. I'm going to ask you that right now. Kurt Angle's deal with TNA is set to expire next month. Actually, this month, for when we record this in September. September 20th or September 21st, I think it is.
21st.
Yeah. So that's when Kurt Angle's deal with TNA comes to an end. Will he jump ship to the WWE? There have been some rumors that Vince does not want him back. Triple H says it's not his call anymore. It's still Vince's. Or maybe it was the other way around. Triple H didn't want him back. Vince said it's not his call anymore. I'm sorry, I botched that. Well, that being said, though, John, your thoughts on Kurt Angle coming back to WWE, how realistic is it? Do you want to see him back? Do you think they will take him back? And why do you want to see the Olympic gold medalist back in his home of the WWE?
Now put yourself in Anaheim, California on August 25th, 2014. You've just witnessed one of the worst Raws in WWE history. Alright, the match is closing, and this is all pure fantasy, folks. The match is closing. John Cena just buried the Wyatt family, as you've touted about. Johnson just buried the Wyatt family. Next thing you know, you're sitting in the nosebleeds. You're getting ready to pack up. Next thing you know, you hear dun 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 dun. Oh my God, the place would go crazy. And not only would that, there you go. Thank you, Graham. I appreciate it. Not only would that improve the quality of the show, it would turn the entire show around. And I'm in the maybe the minority, but I have the belief that if Kurt Angle were to come around, the whole dynamic of the fall programming would be drastically different for the better. There's so many things that Kurt Angle could do if he were to come back. First of all, he would most likely be in an active position, an active role in ring. He probably wouldn't be working every TV or every house show, but he would definitely be working in an active role. So I think that Kurt Angle can still go. It would be awesome to see him come back, feud with guys like a returning Daniel Bryan, maybe get a John Cena program in there. And personally, this is just my dream match would be to see Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE title, perhaps. So I just think that there's been such a long Kurt Angle drought in the WWE that he's probably one of the only guys I would like to see come back into the company at this point to work programs. Even just his presence in the show would enhance the quality of Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown. So I think that Kurt Angle coming back would only benefit the WWE. Now, as far as Triple H not wanting Kurt Angle to come back, I did read something that Kurt Angle went over Triple H's head to talk to Mr. McMahon, and Triple H didn't really appreciate that, yeah, because he felt as though Kurt Angle didn't really respect his authority.
How true that is remains to be seen, but it is a rumor going on right now, yes.
So, if that is the case, then it's going to be a little harder to see Kurt Angle make his return on Monday Night Raw, but I just think that with the way things are looking, especially from last night, that a Kurt Angle return could only help us at this point in time.
So, someone brought this up in a comment thread that I was looking at, and it makes a lot of sense, and I'm a big RVD fan, but how much sense do you think it makes to bring back RVD? And it's not like it's a TNA thing, because RVD was in TNA for a number of years as well. Maybe, I mean, if the rumors are true, the problem was with Triple H and him not wanting him back and such. But do you think the fact that Kurt Angle left WWE, not in controversial fashion, his deal expired and he jumped ship to TNA, and the fact that he quote-unquote backstabbed the WWE in a way, it wasn't like an outsiders kind of thing, it wasn't like in a Bret Hart way or an Ultimate Warrior way, it was completely different in that sense. Do you think Vince still has lingering feelings about Kurt Angle leaving WWE for TNA for many more years? And I mean, he's been in TNA longer than he was ever in the WWE, so do you still think that it still has an effect on Vince?
Well,
or Triple H for that matter.
Kurt Angle was a top-tier talent from the moment he walked into the WWE.
Yep.
There was never any doubt in creative's mind at the time that he was going to be a main event caliber superstar, and he was. He delivered in his matches. He was one of the most, if not the most entertaining guy in the locker room.
Consistently.
Always. He was hilarious. He put on great promos and everything, and he just interacted with the fans very well. So if he makes Mr. McMahon reminiscent of that time period at all, of course Mr. McMahon would want him back, and of course Kurt Angle has been not watered down a little, but he's grown older, and his content, the product he brings to the table, wouldn't be as cutting edge as 2001, 2002.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah.
the guy can still go.
The
guy can still go with the best of them, and that's the thing. Even at his age, he can still put on a 30-minute with Brock Lesnar. In my opinion, I would love to see that at some point. So it's a for me. If I was Mr. McMahon, it wouldn't be a matter of if, but when. When is the right time to bring Kurt Angle back? And we discussed this on an earlier podcast. It's a young man's game in the WWE right now, so I can't really see a lot of old-timers coming back at all, but Kurt Angle, I would love to see him come back.
With Kurt Angle, the thing is, and I really enjoyed his matches with Bobby Roode last year over in TNA. He's had a lot of great matches in TNA over the course of his stint there. But the thing is with Kurt Angle, he's not an 02 or 03 Kurt Angle. We're looking at a completely different Kurt Angle. Is he watered down to the point of like Hulk Hogan, who we also talked about last week, and having one more match, and that he's so beaten up with the broken neck and he's had so many injuries over the years that he can never wrestle again? I don't think that's the case whatsoever. The guy's 40-something years old. He's got a number of good matches left in him. The only part that I disagree with is that you said, I don't know if you said it on last week's show, or maybe we didn't say it on air, but maybe it was in the hashtag SSM video, but in that Kurt Angle would work a Shawn Michaels schedule from like 2010. I think it's more of like, not even like a Batista or Jericho where he's working the Raw and SmackDown sometimes. I think it's more of a schedule where they maybe not get one more match out of him, but maybe a couple more like big-time matches. Like a part-time schedule, pretty much. He can still appear on TV, that's not the problem, but he doesn't have to wrestle as much. Especially since I think there was a big rumor going around, maybe late last year, earlier this year, in that Kurt Angle would not pass a physical in the WWE given his current state, and all the DUIs that he's gotten and stuff like that. I don't know if they would even want him back. But if he was able to come back and they didn't want him back, I think there's a lot of money left on the table on that, like you said, with money matches. And that I personally want to see it with Brock Lesnar, but with Daniel Bryan as well, I would love to see. Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, even CM Punk, if that was a possibility at one point in time. I think there's a lot of money left to be made with Kurt Angle in the WWE if they want to bring him back.
Well, just to go to your point, you mentioned how Kurt Angle has had DUIs in the past, but he has mentioned on his Twitter he's very proud of the fact that he's been sober
for a number of years now. Yes.
So that I don't think that would infringe on his the possibility of him going back to the WWE. I don't think that would be a problem.
I don't think so as well. It's not currently an issue. I think just the fact that it happened so many times when he was with TNA may serve as an issue, because I know when he got his last DUI last August, people were saying, "Oh, there it goes for his WWE return. It's not happening. No chance of it happening now." And I don't think that's the case. I think a return is very much likely, and I want to see him in WWE, whatever role he has. Personally, I want to see him return as a competitor. Not an active competitor, but I don't want to see him come back as an NXT trainer or something like that. I want to see, like you said, have that reaction go off in not Philadelphia next year. That's where the Rumble was this past year. I think where is it next year? It's in Pittsburgh, or Pittsburgh was this past year. Where's Kurt Angle from? I think he's from Pittsburgh.
He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so Pittsburgh was this past year. Philly is this next year. It's not exactly his hometown, but it's his home state. He would still get a big reaction if he were to come back to the WWE. I don't know if TNA has that 90-day no-compete clause. I'm not exactly sure what the whole TNA deal is. But it would give him about a few months to recover to, hang home with his kids and his wife or something for the remainder of the year if he were to come back for WrestleMania season early next year. And where he would land on the card, like we said before, a potential Hogan tag team match. Like I said last time when we talked, that's not something I necessarily want to see, but it is a possibility. Undertaker, Sting, Triple H Batista, or whatever is going to be happening, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. There's a lot of big-time matches. I don't know where Kurt Angle would fit in that equation and stuff like that. So, with that being said, I still look forward to Kurt Angle coming back to WWE. If it does indeed happen, if it doesn't, I think there's a lot of money left on the table with Kurt Angle. So, that being said, this wasn't on my potential list of topics, and I read about it yesterday, but I want to talk about it. I just thought it just came to mind right now. Stone Cold Steve Austin said in a recent interview with PW Torch that he didn't confirm or deny this, and that a return match, one last match for Stone Cold Steve Austin, WrestleMania 32, because it will be in, I don't know if it's going to be in Austin, Texas, but I do know that there have been talks of it happening in Texas, his home state. Do you want to see one more match from Stone Cold Steve Austin, or do you think it's gotten to the point where it's been so long, not even saying where it's been so long where he won't make money for a return match, in that what I'm saying is that it's been so long since he last wrestled that he might not have a great match as you would expect. It might disappoint. Do you want to see one more match from the Texas Rattlesnake?
Well, last week we talked about Hogan having a return match and how much money that would make. You're telling me that if Steve Austin didn't lace up his boots again, he wouldn't make as much money as Hogan? In my opinion, Austin would make more money, exponentially more money, than Hulk Hogan if you put his boots up, especially if you were in Texas for WrestleMania 32. So there are a lot of factors that depend on this scenario, like who is he going to be facing, CM Punk, who would be his opponent, what would be the storyline. There are a lot of factors that have to go into this. But would I love to see Stone Cold Steve Austin lace him up one more time? Depends. It depends. Is he healthy? Will he be healthy after the match? Really, it's the memories and the nostalgic value of that is not greater than whether he can come out of it healthy or just as healthy as he did going into it. I don't want to see him put any part of his life, career on the line. So if it's too close to call as far as his ability to have a good match and stay uninjured, then I wouldn't advise he go in the ring. I think that he's done enough for the WWE Universe. He's really given us great memories over the years. I really don't think he owes us anything more other than what he's currently giving us, and that's his occasional appearances. I think that he's doing fine with all that. But if he's determined and he really thinks he can get in there, have a good 20, maybe 15-minute match, and come out as healthy as he went in, then I would love to see Stone Cold Steve Austin lace him up one more time.
Do you think that it would tarnish the legacy if he came back for, a half-assed matchup? And I don't think Stone Cold would ever do that, thinking that I can only put half of my effort into this and I'll just come back for the payday. I don't think Austin is that person where he would do that. I think if he's not going to come back 100%, he's not 100%. He's 40-something years old. He's got a broken neck. He's had so many surgeries over the years in that he's not going to come back. He's not going to come back 100%. He never will be. But he might come back to the point where he's strong enough to have a good match. And if he doesn't believe he'll have a good match, then he won't come back at all in terms of an in-ring role. He said that before. Do you think it might tarnish the legacy of his last matchup with The Rock from WrestleMania 19? Personally, one of your favorite WrestleManias in recent memory.
Well, how many times has the reputation of Hulk Hogan been tarnished by things that he's done?
And shit in TNA and garbage like that. Ric Flair as well, for that matter.
98, getting a wrist lock applied on him by Jay Leno. I mean, that, more than anything, I feel tarnishes your legacy. I think, like I said, if Stone Cold Steve Austin is healthy enough, I think that he himself would definitely have that standard of quality. Like, I have to go back and I have to be just as good as before I left. And that's all good and well, but I think from a fan's point of view, just seeing him in his ring gear, coming down to his entrance music, that would be all the experience the WWE fan needed. So, of course, for Stone Cold, he's going to have his own standards, his own bar that he wants to achieve. But for the WWE fans' point of view, it'd really be all about going and seeing or going and witnessing Stone Cold Steve Austin's final match ever. And like I said, it all depends on whether he can remain healthy or not. But I would love to see it.
And you mentioned before, under your breath, as a little minor comment, who would you like to see him come back into face CM Punk or anyone else?
At this point, if CM Punk ever decides to wrestle again, CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin would be a great matchup. I still think that John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin would be quite the matchup.
It would be, yes, I agree with that. Icon versus icon.
This would be a little more, it would be less likely to happen. It depends how well his push and how well he continues to get over. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Dean Ambrose.
Ooh!
That might be a good match. Because I like to parallel the Shield with stars from the Attitude Era, and that Seth Rollins is more of a Rock kind of character, how he's flashier, and everyone remembers Survivor Series 98, how The Rock aligned himself with Corporation, and
not an exact parallel. What I like about the Shield is that there's a lot of mixtures. You know what I was saying to you last time? Like Dean Ambrose is like a Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is perfect. Brian Pillman. And maybe Jake the Snake Roberts. Someone said that final third person. I can't remember who it was. I thought it was perfect though. But absolutely, Brian Pillman, Stone Cold Steve Austin, I could definitely see that.
And then maybe if you want to parallel like Roman Reigns to a Triple H kind of guy, I see more of a Rock and Roman than in Seth. All right. Well, to me, it's just the fact that Seth was he was a very athletic, he had a lot of potential in his faction, the Shield, and he broke away by joining up with
the heel faction. I can see that, absolutely.
As did The Rock in 1998. And I see a lot of similarities in how, The Rock was always being referred to as like the flashy kind of superstar.
Yeah.
And Seth Rollins, I think more than Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, embodies that kind of superstar.
Yeah. And I also see that Jeff Hardy and Seth Rollins as well in terms of that flashy offense and just being, when he gets over, when he eventually turns babyface, he's going to be big. And he already is big. But I think he's going to get that women fan base behind him, given his current look and whatnot. But absolutely. So, going back to the topic at hand here, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Dean Ambrose, potentially versus CM Punk if he ever was to come back. Anyone from the current landscape, say WrestleMania 32, say CM Punk is not back by that point in time, who would you book?
To be honest, I would like to see John Cena.
Okay, that's a money matchup.
That is a money matchup.
That speaks dollars.
You had John Cena go over on The Rock at WrestleMania 29. Who would want to see John Cena versus Stone Cold Steve Austin? I mean, it's not that John Cena needs that match.
No.
Not that Stone Cold Steve Austin needs that match. It's just it's a fantasy match.
Yes.
WrestleMania 18, WrestleMania 28, all over again. People would love to see, in my opinion, the biggest star from the Attitude Era. I know that when Cena was feuding with The Rock got a lot of those monikers, a lot of those titles as being the face of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk about this briefly. But in my opinion, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the true face of the Attitude Era. If not, it was a ownership of the face of the Attitude Era between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, but it would be the face of the company versus the former face of the company, the two final pillars of the Mount Rushmore of the WWE in terms of chronological order. So I think that Stone Cold Steve Austin versus John Cena would be a money match. And can I bring this up to you? Because it's a very controversial topic in my opinion. And I've actually tweeted about this. And now, after watching a lot of WrestleMania Rewinds on the WWE Network, watching a lot of docs about The Rock and stuff of that nature, everyone, including the Miz, who comes to my mind, Stephanie McMahon did it, dropped it a couple times too, refer to The Rock as the biggest star of the Attitude Era, just the face of the company in the late 90s. And like I feel like they're really not doing Stone Cold Steve Austin justice, but then you have Mr. McMahon at the 2009 Hall of Fame saying Stone Cold Steve Austin's the greatest superstar of all time. So they're very inconsistent with their titles.
Whatever's convenient for them.
At the time, so if The Rock's going against Roman Reigns, it's the star of the Attitude Era versus the future star.
Yeah.
So, but if Stone Cold Steve Austin's going versus John Cena, it's the real star of the Attitude Era versus the current star. So it's confusing to me how they're not consistent with who they're calling the face, the star, the megastar, and I really like once and for all to establish. We all know how big Hogan was in the Golden Era. We all know how big Bret Hart was in the New Generation. Shawn Michaels kind of broke out from the New Generation into the Attitude Era, gave the torch to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin definitely handed it then to Brock Lesnar, who then left, and John Cena was given the ball then.
Yep.
Now, where does The Rock fit into this? The Rock was a great star. Between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, I felt The Rock was more entertaining. I thought The Rock was a completer package. I thought that between the two, The Rock had more credentials, more characteristics of a true WWE superstar. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was persistent, determined, and they both wanted that number one spot. And now we really got to decide, and this might even be a longer process than I'm portraying right now, but you and I really have to decide, not just for us, but for everyone, who is the true star of the Attitude Era. I mean, you got the glory of the Attitude Era was that you had two guys captaining the ship of the WWE.
Yep.
Now, I think it's just a unique era in that if in the Golden Era you had a star as big as Hulk Hogan, that him and Hogan would be the face of the face of the Golden Era.
Yep.
It was a unique time period, but I think for once and for all, we really need to establish who was the guy, and I would really like to get your thoughts on that.
We'll branch off from there in just a minute, but my thoughts on who is the real star of the Attitude Era, and it all goes back to that fantasy thing on who would be on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. We can go into an hour discussion on that. Everyone's been talking about it over these last couple of months. And who would take that place? If there were five guys, I would do Cena, Hogan, Austin, and Bruno, and Rock. If the five guys, I think Bruno needs to be on there too. I think he was the foundation of WWE earlier on. But Austin and Rock were on that same level in the Attitude Era. Austin sold more merch. Who was more entertaining? I think The Rock in terms of mic skills and stuff like that. But Austin was, in the wrestling world, the face of the Attitude Era. Culturally, who was the bigger star? Obviously, The Rock. I mean, if you go to anyone, who do you know from wrestling? People are either going to say Hulk Hogan or The Rock for the most part. So I would have to go with Austin if we're talking about wrestling here. But who's more well-known? The Rock. But, I mean, then again, you can have a fucking Jimmy Wang who goes on to have an all-star, A-plus movie career. And in WWE, he was nothing. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say. But I would have to go with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But in that same note, I want to ask you this, and you kind of mentioned it before, and I'm glad you really brought this up because it goes back to what I was going to say. And maybe I'm in the minority on this one, but do you want to see a Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Rock match at WrestleMania 32?
To be honest, that's a difficult question, and I think that some things are best left untampered with.
Thank you.
And that trilogy you're never going to have something as beautiful, artistic, theatrical. You're never going to have something that great.
Yep.
Again in the WWE. And there's no reason to go back and at all tamper with the legacy of those two guys. That rivalry, in my opinion, you can go back and watch any of the WWE docs on the network and how they'll say that Austin McMahon's the greatest rivalry in WWE history. In my opinion, Austin Rock's the greatest rivalry in WWE history, and I don't believe that there's any reason at their current age, if they were 10 years younger, maybe go for it, but at their current age, there's no reason to go back and tamper with that rivalry.
11, 12, 13 years later, I don't think it's necessary. The matches would be nowhere near what they were back in the day. I mean, Cena and Austin is different because it's something new, it's something fresh we haven't seen before. You can't compare it to what it used to be. But with Austin and Rock, it's a completely different nature, and that Rock isn't what he used to be, and Austin is not what he used to be. So I think, like you said before, having that 3-match series, having Austin win, Rock win that last one, and the final words exchanged between the two on his way out, I thought were beautiful. You don't really need to tamper with that, as you said. So any more thoughts on the Austin Rock thing?
Especially after WrestleMania 30, how these guys are just hugging in the ring. But there's no heat for them. There would be no...
There's really no reason.
No logical reason to do that, so...
I think the only reason why I could think why they would do it, not only because it's a money matchup, and that's just because it's a money matchup doesn't mean you should always do it. That's not always the case. But, like a one more thing, give it our last try, just one more time. But they did that at WrestleMania 19. That was their one more time, one last time. Rock needs to get this win. They both got wins over each other. There's really no reason for them to face off. So I really see no reason why they should face off. Maybe it's because we didn't grow up in the Attitude Era. Maybe that's why our views are a bit different. Maybe the people that grew up there are more nostalgic toward another Austin and Rock match. Maybe that's why they want to see another one, but I just personally do not want to see that.
And you did, with finality, confirm that Stone Cold, in your opinion, is the bigger star of the Attitude Era. Now, I know selling merch is a big credential in the WWE, but look at in-ring and the overall resume of the two guys. Who won more world titles?
I don't think winning more...
All right, just humor me.
The Rock.
All right. Who won more matches at WrestleMania?
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
That would be The Rock.
Okay.
Look at The Rock's WrestleMania resume. I've said this before. Hulk Hogan,
Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena.
What more do you need? I mean, that right there is, in of itself, just probably the greatest WrestleMania resume out there, other than The Undertaker.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the greatest WrestleMania resume. Those on your Mount Rushmore, those are three
and
guys.
He's beating them all.
Unless you want Rock to go beat the shit out of Bruno Sammartino,
yeah.
there's no one left for him to beat. He's beat the top guys.
Yep.
Stone Cold beat The Rock twice. He's never faced Hogan. He's never faced Cena. In fact, he lost at WrestleMania 19. And then, I know, there's no reason to go and look at their stats and things of that nature. But I just think that, statistically, I'm sorry about this.
Go right ahead.
The Rock is the bigger star. I'm a Rock guy, so I'm trying.
He's wearing a Rock shirt as we
I'm
speak.
A Rock guy.
Just bring it.
Just bring it. So, I don't know. I think that I don't think it's as easy as saying, oh well, the Stone Cold. Brought a beer truck into the Raw arena and he drove a Zamboni and got arrested. I don't think it's as easy as doing, oh, well, Stone Cold's bigger because he sold more merch. I think that you really have to dive deep into their illustrious rivalry and see who the bigger star was.
I think there's a big difference between the question, we talked about this before, who was the face of the Attitude Era and who's the better overall performer, entertainer. Because like you've said in the past, and I know you said this after watching the docs and whatnot, Rock could go as a babyface and a heel. Austin has always wanted to be heel, but that heel run in 2001 failed. He could only work as that rebellious babyface, from the Attitude Era. From that entire Attitude Era, he was a rebellious babyface, with the exception of his earlier on in his career, and he had to turn babyface after his match with Bret Hart. So overall, I'm not going to say who the better performer is. I think you might say The Rock, and I might have to agree with that. But with that being said, I think the face of the Attitude Era would have to be Austin in terms of more involved and more top-tier storylines. And The Rock took over when Austin got injured. And like you said this before as well, when Austin got injured, that kind of took away from some of his time at the top and his feud with Mr. McMahon and whatnot. But Rock, took the ball and ran with it from 1999 and 2000 maybe, from when he, when Stone Cold was still out of the equation. So absolutely, I would say I still think that Austin is a bigger star, but overall better performer, like you said, with the titles wins and stuff like that. I might have to go with The Rock. So any more thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I'm good.
From that point forward, we will go into... we'll skip the Cesaro, Paul Heyman stuff right now. We can go back to that later if we still have time. But SmackDown, going to Thursday nights. Now, we've talked about this before. Last time when I was here for SummerSlam, we gave some opinions on this. Friday Night SmackDown is once again going to Thursday Night SmackDown. John, your thoughts?
Thursday Night SmackDown, I mean, it does have the nostalgia factor from 1999 to 2004. SmackDown aired on Thursday nights.
Yep.
And it was, in essence, a better show than what we have now. Better quality, better wrestling. And it would really, I think, revamp the image of SmackDown. I think it's a good move on their part. I was a little iffy on it at first, considering I've only known SmackDown to be a Friday night premiere, or a Friday night production. So...
For the last almost 10 years.
Yeah, so the fact that they're moving back to Thursdays is something I've never witnessed. I'd really like to witness. It would bring the nostalgia factor in, and hopefully with the changing of dates, maybe they can revamp their product a little bit more, make it a little more interesting, not really just Raw reruns. But I think that the move to Thursday night is hopefully gonna be a better business decision than staying on Friday nights.
So this was a question I was going to ask you at the start of this conversation. Do you think moving back to Thursday nights will revitalize the SmackDown brand? Because as you said before, it's in the home of Raw rematches for years now, ever since the death of the brand split. And as of last night on Raw, from when we taped this, it was announced for this Friday's SmackDown, it's going to be the Wyatt family versus Big Show and Mark Henry for the 5th fucking time in the last 2 weeks. So do you think SmackDown will get a rub out of going back to Thursday nights?
I'm hoping that the fact that they're doing anything at all with SmackDown, I
Yes.
think is a telltale sign that they have plans for them.
Yep.
They have ideas in progress to make their brand a little, not their brand, but to make the SmackDown brand a little more entertaining, a little more appealing.
Yep.
And so I think that going to Thursdays is only beneficial to SmackDown. I think that nothing can be the same too long. In life, like in wrestling, or in wrestling like in life, evolution change is not only necessary, but it needs to. It's necessary.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry. It's early, guys. It's early. I haven't had my coffee yet. It needs to happen. All change, all evolutionary matters. So if SmackDown were on Friday nights for the next decade, I mean it would get a little stale, get a little boring.
It would, yes.
I'm not saying that the product is going to improve because they moved to Thursday nights.
No.
But just because they're changing the image a little bit, changing the environment, the atmosphere of SmackDown, I'm thinking that change is coming, and I think, in my opinion, all change is good change.
I definitely agree with that. I told you this the last time we talked about it when the news first broke on SmackDown going to Thursday nights. But I think the biggest issue is not the night. And I do like the move to Thursdays, especially with Impact going to Wednesdays now. I think the biggest issue with SmackDown is the fact that it's not live. I don't know if they can go live due to the budget cuts and stuff right now. the fact they're on a budget, I don't know if they can go live at the moment. They probably can't. But I think in the long scheme of things, I think they need to go live in order to revitalize SmackDown, bring back some meaning to it. And all the spoilers, that's what people look up and all that kind of stuff. I think it's something that needs to happen sooner rather than later. I know it's not going to happen right now or anytime in the near future. But when it is possible, logistically, from a financial standpoint, I think it needs to happen because right now it's just not working. SmackDown has been the B show forever. I think we can all agree on that. But it hasn't had that same meaning that it used to have back in even 08 or 09 or 2010 before the death of the brand split. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think we already talked about whether it will, help the SmackDown brand going back to Thursdays, but do you think going live for SmackDown is necessary?
I mean, that would heavily increase the production value of Friday Night SmackDown. There's a lot more you have to do to a show when it's live. There's a lot of more hands you need on deck. So the fact that SmackDown isn't live isn't necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. I mean, of course, you have the spoiler effect. With people every Tuesday night saying on the internet what happened at the SmackDown tapings, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that SmackDown serves well as the B show. I don't necessarily want to see how they did the brand split 2002. I don't necessarily want to see SmackDown competing with Raw. But I don't want to see SmackDown be Raw 2.0.
Exactly.
All right.
You got to find that happy medium. And where you can further storylines on SmackDown without repeating the same shit that we saw days earlier on Raw.
Because then there's no point in tuning in. Because
exactly. That's what people. Raw. Exactly. That's why a lot of people do not watch SmackDown anymore. because there's nothing of note happening on that show. I can't remember the last time they had a title change on SmackDown, because it's always happened on Raw or at pay-per-views.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I think the fact that going live on Thursdays is not at all possible, I don't think, unfortunately. I know they've gone live on Fridays before. That's why I was fond of it on Fridays. I just wanted to see them go live on Fridays. But with that being said, I think that if they wanted to have SmackDown go live, it'd have to be on Tuesdays, and I don't really want to see that. Pay-per-view, a 3-hour or 4-hour pay-per-view, we're talking WrestleMania, 3-hour Monday Night Raw, and a 2-hour SmackDown.
It's too much too soon.
Way too much within the course of a 2-day span. You know what I mean?
Main event on Wednesdays.
Main event on Wednesday. No, that was also on Tuesday, or currently on Tuesdays.
Okay.
They would have to move that, but too much.
NXT Thursdays, Superstars Thursdays.
Yeah, too much. So I don't think they should go. That's why I don't think going live on a regular basis on Thursdays is possible, because I know, from what I've heard, Thursdays is the only day that WWE talents have off from the road, I guess, because they have house shows on Wednesdays or Fridays and all over the weekend and stuff like that. So I don't think it's possible, unfortunately, but in my way of thinking, I think that'd be the best thing to do. Do you think the fact they're on Sci-Fi hurts or helps SmackDown, or is it a non-factor?
I wouldn't say it's a non-factor. When they first moved to Sci-Fi in 2010, I was especially supportive of that move, because I thought that their prior home wasn't doing them any favors. I remember I would record SmackDown and
They'd get a baseball game instead?
For the last 45 minutes of a Yankee game would be on, and I would be missing. So I don't think they were doing SmackDown any favors prior to the move on Sci-Fi.
Yep.
So I liked SmackDown on Sci-Fi. I think it's a good home, really close to the USA Network. So I think that having SmackDown on Sci-Fi, Raw and USA is a nice little cohesive unit right there. I like them on those two channels. So but I don't see SmackDown moving networks. I think that.
I don't think you can at this point. They signed a TV deal not too long ago.
But what I'm trying to say is, unfortunately, what it's looking like is that SmackDown is going to do the same things we're getting just a day earlier.
Exactly. I just don't think going on Tuesdays is possible. Sci-Fi, like you said, I don't think it's a non-factor. At one point, I wanted to see both Raw and SmackDown on the USA Network, because I know when SmackDown has gone live on the USA Network in the past, like commercial-free and stuff, they've gotten better ratings. But I know WWE doesn't want to have both of their shows on the same network. I don't know if that's even possible. But even so, though, I think we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's not leaving Sci-Fi anytime soon. They signed a TV deal not too long ago, I think for the next 3 years or so. And I like the USA Network. I like that being the home of Monday Night Raw. I'm glad that didn't change earlier this year. But yeah, that's SmackDown moving to Thursdays, our discussion on that. Next thing I know you really want to talk about, Alberto Del Rio's very shocking and controversial, and I know they talk about that word, I know they use that word to describe John Cena, but this is a situation that needs that adjective. Controversial situation here surrounding Alberto Del Rio, his release from the WWE, the whole slapping of the social worker. We haven't really talked about this all that much since I last saw you. But that being said, though, I want to get your thoughts. I won't really recap it. I think a lot of people already know what happens. Or what happened. Your thoughts.
Can we confirm that his actions were racially motivated? Were they not racially ignited?
They were. Del Rio has confirmed that himself.
So
yes.
In that scenario right there, I don't blame Alberto Del Rio for anything that he's done in the WWE. In fact, I think that he brought a lot to the table. He was floundering. He wasn't doing a lot. But I really appreciate Alberto Del Rio as a wrestling hand.
Yep.
I thought he's always been a legitimate threat to any title in the WWE. Now, of course, I'm not blind. I saw that Alberto Del Rio was doing nothing as of late. But there's the WWE is one big pendulum, and once it gets all the way to the other side, it's due for a swing in the other direction. So I'm not saying Alberto Del Rio is going to be the next WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I'm just saying it's nice to have a former top guy, a legitimate, not star, but a legitimate hand in the ring, to be able to put over the Dean Ambroses, the Seth Rollins of the world. I mean, of course, you have that in the form of other superstars like Kane and
Kofi Kingston
of that nature. I always appreciated Alberto Del Rio's work ethic. I always thought he was a great hand in the WWE universe, in the WWE ring. And am I going to miss him? I mean, I was never high on Alberto Del Rio. When I first saw his vignettes in 2010,
I was bored out of my mind.
I didn't appreciate him. I didn't really like him that much. But to be honest, he he represents, it's really what he represents that is special to me, because he represents a time period in which I was a huge fan. I still am a huge fan, but when I was especially a huge fan of the company, and that coming off of CM Punk's Best in the World run, he was his main adversary at the time, other than John Cena. Those three really had a special program they were running in that summer into that fall of 2011.
Yep.
And really, I just know how much potential he has as a heel. He even proved his chops as a babyface early in 2013. So, of course, I'm saddened that he's gone, but I don't think it's going to be a huge factor. He wasn't doing a lot with the company as it is. He was always on Superstars, just putting over talent or getting put over. So I think that it won't affect the landscape of the WWE, his absence, but I am going to miss him.
So here's the thing with the release itself. We talked about this before, and I don't want to go in depth with this because I talked about this here on the show before. In that the fact that he slapped the social worker, whatever I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, I think even he has confirmed that. Like you said before, it was a racial thing. I don't blame him in any situation. I would not blame him. But the fact that he was released does not surprise me. From what I've heard, he slapped the guy pretty forcefully. But any physical interaction with this guy, I don't think was necessary. Was he in the right to do it? Yes. His motives were there. But with that being said, though, you can't put your hand on somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like, who did you mention? You mentioned...
I brought up a point. I was just about to bring it up again. Montreal, 1997 Survivor Series. Bret Hart gets screwed out of the WWE Championship.
Yes.
He goes backstage, punches not a social worker, but the CEO of the company, Mr. McMahon. He punches Mr. McMahon in the head, gives him a concussion, and then, 9 years later is brought back to do a Hall of Fame run. 14 years after that, he's doing he's at WrestleMania working against Mr. McMahon. So I think, and that's less of in my opinion, that's less of a crime than a racial slur, a racial innuendo.
Yes.
So the fact that Bret Hart can punch Mr. McMahon, go off to WCW, and come back in good graces and everything. I know Bret Hart had a seizure and everything. That's really how they, Mr. McMahon and him kind of reunited. But I just think that Alberto Del Rio getting a racial slur thrown at him, or a racial innuendo, and then him really defending, like, well, you're not supposed to say that. I think that's less of a charge than Bret Hart punching the
boss,
the head of the company. So I don't blame Alberto Del Rio. I think he was in the right to be offended, but I don't think that just putting your hands on someone, I know it's uncalled for in the work environment.
Yeah.
But given the scenario, I think that an investigation should have taken place. I feel like they just let him go too soon. And honestly, I know his contract was coming up. He was looking to leave the company anyway, and that was probably more of a reason why they just decided to let him go. But I think that for dignity's sake, and so that doesn't happen again, you really need to do an investigation. Just kind of like dive further into the details.
Yeah.
Like I said, if Bret Hart can punch Mr. McMahon, Alberto Del Rio doesn't need to get fired for slapping. What was it? A social worker? You said?
Yeah, no, social worker. Did I say social worker all this time?
Saying that all
social worker. I'm sorry, social media worker is what I meant to say.
Social media worker.
So here's the thing with this, okay? And I know he was on his way out anyway, and I understand the
along with Bret Hart. That's why the situations they're similar.
Yes, and I do see the double standard in that, but it's not like Bret Hart punched the face of the company, the boss of the company, and was kept around. He was out of the company anyway, so he really had nothing to lose at that point. And it would be different if Del Rio, if we're talking this 10, 15 years down the line, and Del Rio was never brought back for anything. That's completely different. Because from what I heard just recently, Del Rio did an interview down in Mexico saying that Triple H, or I think it might have been Vince. No, I think it was Triple H who called him and told him that he was done. Actually, Vince initially called him and told him that what you did was wrong, we're going to suspend you, which would have been right, which is fine. And the firing, like you said, was a little too soon. It was like the day after it happened. I think it was a little too premature to do. But I think Triple H called him and said, we're going to have to let you go, but we will bring you back after this whole thing, winds down. Which is exactly what happened with Daniel Bryan. Remember a couple of years ago? Not as controversial. It was a little less, wrong, I guess, of him to do, whatever. But they did end up bringing Daniel Bryan back, and I think they could have brought back Del Rio. Del Rio himself has said, I don't want to wrestle in the U.S. ever again. I'm not coming back. I don't care to come back, and I don't blame him. Good for him. If anything, I'm happy for him. I think this whole thing was kind of a weird blessing in disguise, so to speak, in that he was on his way out anyway, like you said. Had he let his contract expire and just left, I don't think he would have been worth as much. Which is funny because there's so much controversy surrounding him right now. I think Mexico that much more wants to get their hands on Del Rio. He's a hot commodity right now. And if he had just let his contract expire after jobbing to Sin Cara on Superstars for last year, no one would have wanted him. He would have still gone back to Mexico, but he would not have been as popular as he is right now. He's happier. He got out sooner. Like you said, I don't think they were going to push him. I think they knew that his time was up. They knew that he was done and that they weren't going to do anything with him until his contract expired. So, if anything, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. Was it right for them to fire him the way they did? No. Like you said, I think they could have either suspended him or waited, did an investigation. So, absolutely, I think it was wrong for them to fire him. They could have done it differently, but I think it all worked out in the end. But with that being said, and I'll get to your point in just a second, I just want to mention this real quick. Night of Champions 2011. I've talked about this here on the show before. I was texting you during that show. This is where they went wrong with Del Rio. I know this is off on a tangent from what we're talking about here. But with Del Rio, Night of Champions 2011, they had his WWE title reign come to an end at John Cena a month in. And even you were texting me. You had a friend that worked at WWE at the time. And you would text me, Cena's winning the belt. And I'm like, no freaking way is he winning the belt. Absolutely not. They're not going to do that. Wins via an STF. It's over. The reign is over. Del Rio, I don't think it's been the same since. So, John, go right ahead.
I want
your rebuttal, sir.
Everything you wanted to say, I just wanted to counter it.
Go right ahead.
And this is going to be a very controversial question. I'd like to see how you field it.
Okay.
Has Alberto Del Rio, Alberto El Patron, has he put forth a Hall of Fame career in his tenure with the WWE?
He was there for 4 years, and it's really how you... We talked about this, too.
He was there the same length as a lot of Hall of Famers.
Like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, for one thing. Maybe not, a little bit less, but even still. You know what I mean.
That's short enough.
Same period, same window of time. We talked about this a couple of days ago, when I was here for SummerSlam, in that there's so many Hall of Fame careers right now. Randy Orton, John Cena. I would even throw Christian in there, for God's sakes. How many top guys do we have right now that could be potential Hall of Famers? Even the freaking Miz you can throw in there with the career that he's had over the last 10 years. With the people that we have in there currently. It really starts to get in the gray area of who's really worthy of a Hall of Fame. Big Show, as we've said before. So it's really hard to say. Del Rio... It's a very good question. I know you can say, well, Coco Beware's in there, so automatically Del Rio.
Abdul the Butcher's in there.
Abdul the Butcher. But I mean, if we're gonna go with that, then everybody, currently Dolph Ziggler. You know what I mean? Because titles they were so far and few between back in the day. It's really different. Because now, how many titles does Kofi Kingston win? Does he deserve a Hall of Fame spot? Maybe. I'm not going to say no. Some people have said Santino, with all the titles that he won, has he made that big of an impact where he deserves to go in next year? I don't think so, personally. I think it's a bit of a joke. But it's a WWE Hall of Fame. It's all politics anyway. It's not really, it's like legitimate. As the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame that we went to in Amsterdam, New York, go there, cheap plug. But great question. Does Del Rio deserve to go in the WWE Hall of Fame? As it stands right now, I would say no. I know he's a 4-time world champion, but I don't think that makes him a bona fide Hall of Famer.
Our controversy right here is I would say he is a Hall of Famer.
Adding in his Money in the Bank win, Royal Rumble.
Clearly, CM Punk took it from him. He was clearly the superstar of 2011. Clearly. And I think that... Overall, I think that he has put together a Hall of Fame resume, in my opinion. There are people in the Hall of Fame for less. Not territorial guys. WWE superstars in the Hall of Fame for less. I mean, if you look at Ramon, he was never a world champion. He was a 4-time Intercontinental champion, and a lot of people, and he wasn't even inducted as Scott Hall. He was inducted as Ramon, so you can't even put his WCW tenure as a part of his credentials.
Exactly. There's only Ramon. Yeah.
There are people in the Hall of Fame for less, and I'm not saying anyone who wins 3 world championships should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm saying that at one time, Alberto Del Rio was the top heel of the company. They gave him the ball following SummerSlam 2011. All right, he didn't exactly run with it, considering he was stripped of the strap a couple weeks later. But I think that honestly, he's put together a type of resume that people in the early '90s, mid '90s only wish they could have assembled. I think that with his Royal Rumble victory, his Money in the Bank victory, just his legacy in general, in my opinion, is Hall of Fame worthy.
I think it all comes down to, I know he's had a lot of success over the years, but he never really had that big of an impact where years down the line you're going to remember Del Rio as being one of the biggest faces in modern memory, and that he was only on top for about a year. He was with the company on the main roster for about 4, but really as even last year, 2013, the guy was an afterthought as world champion. The babyface thing did not work out too well. He wasn't around for long. That flopped.
But Graham, I don't like that argument because when I look back into the 1960s, I don't think of Antonio Inoki.
But he made an impact, though.
But with the WWE, and this is where it gets controversial. He made an impact.
Okay.
And you just made the argument when you look back, you're not going to think about Alberto Del Rio's face. When I look back, I don't think of Antonio Inoki's face. I don't. Carlos Colon.
That's exactly it. WWE is very convenient. We talk about this word convenient a lot this episode, in that it's whatever's convenient for them. It's a WWE Hall of Fame, but like Inoki, Abdul the Butcher, who has had success outside of WWE in wrestling, but in WWE he's not really worthy. Carlos Colon, what I mean?
Abdul the Butcher was never a WWE superstar at no point in his career.
WWE likes to mention when they inducted Carlos Colon, in that he was the founder of the World Wrestling of Puerto Rico, whatever, WWC.
The promotion down there.
The council, the World Wrestling Council, or whatever it's called. WWE doesn't even own that territory. So, they say that he's found success in, finding that company, that territory, but it has nothing to do with WWE. And he's had success in wrestling, but WWE-wise, does not deserve to go in.
So, if guys like that can get in the Hall of Fame, Alberto Del Rio has a Hall of Fame career. And and I do see your point how, well, if Alberto Del Rio has a Hall of Fame career, then so does Christian, so does Kofi Kingston.
Yeah.
Ziggler's a 2-time world champ. He's a Hall of Fame. Like, I understand that it gets a little weird, it gets a little gray there, because that, like, when the Hall of Fame was first conceptualized for Andre the Giant, it was either if you were a top star, if you made a huge impact, you were in. All right, but now it's gotten to the point, well,
there were so few top guys in the 1980s and 1970s, even for that matter, that there was really no one that you can induct.
I'm just thinking if Razor Ramon, who had, don't get me wrong, had a huge
we're getting to that 90s era now.
If Razor Ramon had a huge impact in the WWE, I would contest that Del Rio had a better career than Razor Ramon, and that's going to give me a lot of heat. But
Ramon had. No, yes, Del Rio had more success.
Found more success.
But Ramon had a bigger impact.
Wasn't as over. And can you elaborate on that? Just
Razor Ramon?
Just solely because he was over with the fans, he had a bigger impact?
No. The fact that he competed in the first ever ladder match from 1990... during the 1990s, I think he was...
the first ladder match at WrestleMania.
Yes. No, yeah, not the first ever ladder match, but I'm saying that I think he's a much more memorable character. When you think of the 1990s, he's one of those characters from the 90s that helped legitimize also the Intercontinental Championship.
But Grant, that's the argument that I was just contesting. If he was one of the legitimate characters of the 1990s, well then, like when you look back in the 1990s, the new generation, name 3 stars off the top of your head from the new generation.
Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Razor Ramon.
Razor Ramon, he's in your top 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
All right. When I look, and this is just my argument.
Yokozuna even?
Sure. When I look back on the, give me an obscure Hall of Famer. When I look back in the 1970s, Abdul the Butcher isn't even in my top 10 of people that I think of when I think of the television era.
Yeah.
Maybe if you scale it down to one territory like WCCW, maybe Abdul the Butcher's in the top 10 there.
Yeah.
But as far as pro wrestling in a decade, like all pro wrestling put into the 1970s, Abdul the Butcher isn't even close to where I would rank my top 10. So in that case, you can't say, well, this guy had a big impact because he's one of the faces of that decade. Because Abdul the Butcher, to me, in my opinion, it might differ with someone else, isn't the face of the 1970s, 60s, 80s.
No, I understand that. I understand the whole Abdullah thing. I'm talking about Razor Ramon, though.
But
I'm legitimizing his Hall of Fame
I'm trying to say
career.
that argument isn't valid in that, Razor Ramon...
No, it doesn't apply to every... Like, Coco Beware, does he really stand out as one of the biggest characters of the 1990s?
So So you can't really say, well, Razor Ramon was so over.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I guess.
Because I remember Hornswoggle a hell of a lot. Hornswoggle was on more TV than than Lex Luger has been. I would like someone to study that actually. Who is on more Raws, Hornswoggle or Lex Luger? I would like someone to study that.
Well, Hornswoggle has more longevity than half the guys in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. So I remember Hornswoggle. I've been watching since 2006. I remember Hornswoggle from 2006. You still see him on TV now sometimes. He's been the face of midget wrestling for who knows how long. And it's just like, if I remember his face, that doesn't make him a bona fide star. That doesn't make him Hall of Fame worthy. I'm not saying Hornswoggle can never go to the Hall of Fame, because at some point he probably will, because it's the WWE. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't like that argument that just because they were over and well remembered, they're Hall of Famers.
It really stands on a personal basis for everybody, because all it comes down to is all the politics. If we're talking WWE Hall of Fame, if we're talking legitimate Hall of Fame, like in the Hall of Fame that we went to in Amsterdam, New York, that is a real Hall of Fame where they, base it off of something. People vote, like peers. Peers vote on who should go in the Hall of Fame, which is why Macho Man and Randy Savage went in 2009. Jackson was saying, well, why isn't the Ultimate Warrior even in yet? Because I don't think, yes, he made a big impact for that few years that he was there, but in the overall span of thing, I don't think he made that huge of an impact in the world of wrestling for WWE. Even I'm speaking as a big Warrior fan, and that even for WWE he had a big impact, but overall wrestling, not really. And that's why he hasn't been inducted yet. Maybe when they get to the people, when they're still scraping for more people to go in, maybe. But that's exactly why. So I absolutely agree with that sentiment. But for the WWE Hall of Fame, it's really all personal because it's not really legitimate. I would say the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, if we were discussing that, then yes. But it really all comes down to that specifically. So the final few minutes we have left, I want to talk about this real quick. Rey Mysterio's departure. A few minutes before we get into the superstars of each era. Rey Mysterio, do you think he should have one more match before he leaves the WWE?
Personally, I think that Rey Mysterio has 100% done it all in his career. I think that he's literally squeezed everything he can out of his career. He's provided a lot of memories. He's probably, even if he's gone, he'll probably still sell merch. I mean, he'll be one of the more remembered superstars of all time.
Absolutely, yeah.
The biggest little man ever. So I think that Rey Mysterio's legacy would not be hurt, would not be tarnished if he just hung it up right now. I think that his previous stints after coming back after injuries and time off,
forgettable.
Very forgettable. I mean, he's been coming back and teaming with Big Show and just not doing what we all love to see Rey Mysterio do. And I think that coming back would probably further detract us from his devalue his legacy.
Yes. So I think it's funny because I think it was here when I watched this with you. The last memorable match that I can remember Rey Mysterio having in this household, we watched it together. Him versus Alberto Del Rio for the WWE Championship. The night he got injured again, he hasn't been the same since. And that was 3 years ago. The guy hasn't done anything of note since. I know he's trying to get out of his contract and go to AAA with Rey Mysterio, with Alberto Del Rio. So I'm perfectly fine with that. My only gripe with Rey Mysterio sticking around was that I wanted to see him versus Sin Cara, a.k.a. Mystico, one time before he retired. That's not a possibility anymore because Mystico's gone. It's Hunico now. Not that appealing of a matchup. It doesn't have that marquee value that it would have a couple of years ago when Sin Cara first came into the WWE. Nowadays, Sin Cara's a joke. Rey Mysterio's not even on TV. How he's still selling merch is beyond me. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Rey Mysterio leaving the WWE. Let's get into this real quick. Right. Let's run it down. The superstars of every year.
And
for the last 30 years.
Can I tell the fans how I came across this? I tweeted.
Go ahead.
After Brock Lesnar defeated John Cena in convincing fashion, as Michael Cole said, at SummerSlam, I thought, wow, he broke The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania earlier this year, and he just beat John Cena for his 4th World Championship. This is Brock Lesnar's year. And then I sent out a tweet to all my followers. I said 1998 was Stone Cold's year, 2011 was CM Punk's year, well, 2014 is 100% Brock Lesnar's year. Alright? And so then me and Graham kind of recreationally went down the list of years since 1985 and kind of thought, well, who owns that year? Who can be credited with not being the breakout star, but really finding the most success and finding the most heat and being the most beloved or even most hated by the fans. And so we kind of did that. We're going to run it down real quick because it's an enjoyable, little fun, little kind of expositional piece. So without further ado, we'll go year by year and maybe a little explanation after each one.
And a good talking point as well for a number of fans and whether it can be debatable as well. So we'll start from the 1985 and work our way up to now.
All right. 1985, I believe we did have
Hulk Hogan.
Did we have Hulk Hogan?
Oh, you said Roddy Piper.
I was
right off the bat, we don't even remember.
Started off on a bad note. I was going to contest, since Hogan had so many years in the last half of 1985, or the last half of the 1980s, I was going to give 1985 to Roddy Piper since he was the most over heel in the company ever. Because when you go back prior to 1985, before the WrestleMania boom, who was the most over heel in the company?
Roddy Piper.
Prior to Roddy Piper. Can you even think of a heel? Because everyone prior to them was either Jobber for Backlund or San Martino.
Superstar Billy Graham comes to mind?
Graham or Sheik.
Okay.
There was never anyone truly, like, he innovated the heel.
Okay, yes.
What the heel is today is what Roddy Piper. So I was going to give 1985 to Roddy Piper.
Which is funny because he spent more of his career as a babyface, yet people remember him as this amazing heel.
That heel run was amazing.
Exactly.
So if I give... In my world, Roddy Piper would be given 1985, and Hogan gets 1986.
Actually, this is the way that I would contest it, okay? Now, we're already discussing, so we're not even in the 1990s yet. And this is, first of all, the 30 years of WrestleMania era. I mean, from WrestleMania 1 to WrestleMania 30, 1985, I would give to Roddy Piper. WrestleMania 2, 1986, I would give to Andre the Giant. WrestleMania 2 won that, didn't he win the challenge, or what was it?
Wasn't the Body Slam Challenge?
Yeah.
That was WrestleMania 1.
He won the Battle Royal WrestleMania 2, though.
Okay.
So I would give that year to Andre the Giant, so WrestleMania 3, when he slammed Andre, would go to Hulk Hogan.
Right, so 1987, Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
1988, did we give that to Macho Man? Was that Randy Savage?
I said it was... Yeah, I would give 1988 to Macho Man because he was WWE Champion for almost all of that year. Mm-hmm. You said 1989 because he faced Hulk Hogan at that year's WrestleMania.
But the fact that he held the title for that year would give him the year of 1988. 1989, I believe, was one of the tougher years we couldn't think of.
What really stood out in 1989? I'm trying to think of the WrestleMania 5 card, though.
It was the superpowers, or the mega powers colliding.
Yes. Sergeant Slaughter, maybe. I'm trying to think of what else happened in 1989.
All right. Well, someone can tweet us when they hear this and tell us who they think the 1989 Superstar of the Year really was.
Well, I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to look up WrestleMania 5 card and look down the card real quick and see if any real superstars stood out as being the breakout star or like headlining star of that year. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think because WrestleMania 5 doesn't come to mind as one of the best WrestleManias of all time. But let me see. Maybe Ted DiBiase, Jim Duggan, 88.
Didn't he win the Royal Rumble that year? Was that
in 1988 he did.
1988, okay.
So maybe in 89 would be Savage. Red Rooster, fucking Bobby Heenan, what the hell? Rick Rude defeated the Ultimate Warrior for the Intercontinental Championship. Jake Roberts. Oh, Jake Roberts defeated Andre the Giant. So maybe Jake Roberts.
I like Jake Roberts for 1989.
Okay, I'll give Jake Roberts to 89.
And then don't worry, guys. So the 80s were the hard part because it was really a Hogan era.
Yeah, it really was.
The 90s gets a lot easier because 1990 we had
Ultimate Warrior.
1991 we had The Undertaker.
Undertaker, yes.
1992 we had...
I would have said... Who did we say for 1992?
What? We didn't
Yokozuna, maybe?
Did we say Yokozuna?
It was 1992. WrestleMania 8?
8. Oh, we said Ric Flair.
Ric Flair.
Okay.
Because he won the WWE title that year. Yep. Savage at WrestleMania. It didn't last long, but it was his year. That was the only year that he was in WWE before he came back.
Until he came back.
Yes.
1993, we had Lex Luger.
Yes.
1994, we had Bret Hart.
Yep.
I think this is our only double. We can.
No, we have another double, but I'll talk about that in a minute.
All right, 95, 96, we said Shawn Michaels.
95, I would absolutely give to Shawn Michaels. 96, though.
I mean,
96 is when he won the title.
Yeah, WrestleMania 12.
What about... No, I'm sorry. This was not a double. 95, was Diesel.
Did we have 95 as
Yeah,
Diesel?
95 was the year of Diesel when he... Terrible business year for the WWE,
Yeah.
but Diesel was champion all year round.
All right.
So 95 is Diesel. 96 was Shawn Michaels.
97.
97 you almost gave to Michaels as well. 97 I would give to Austin. He broke out that year.
That conflicts with what I said in my tweet where I said 1998 was Austin's year.
97 was Bret Hart, turned heel, went into...
I mean, you had the screw job. Potentially Mankind.
97?
That's when he broke out, in my
Okay.
opinion.
Did we give a year to Bret Hart then?
94 was Bret Hart's.
Oh, we did? Okay, then never mind then.
I'd say 97 Mankind.
Okay, 97 Mankind. Okay.
98 Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yep.
99 The Rock.
Yes.
2000 Triple H.
Yep.
2001
Kurt Angle.
Dun,
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 dun. Oh my God, he's back!
Welcome back.
Come back. Come back.
2002 we had
Lesnar.
the Beast Incarnate.
That's the only double
That's
that
the
I
only
would
double,
put.
and
Yeah.
you're gonna hear why later. 2003 we had.
Who did we have for
I want to say we
2003?
had Goldberg.
Goldberg, yes. Goldberg.
2004 we had the only faction on the list.
Evolution is a mystery.
Evolution. 2005.
I want to try to give that year to a certain superstar, though. If anything, I'd give it to Benoit. He won the Royal Rumble, world champion, held it until 2004. Held it until SummerSlam.
Lost it
Yeah.
at SummerSlam.
I would give it to Benoit.
And all right, we'll give it to Chris Benoit. We're not allowed to say
Either him
his
or
name.
Randy Orton, yeah. Because Randy Orton didn't have a year, remember?
We took Randy Orton's year away from him.
We can't say Benoit, yeah.
2005 was
Batista.
Batista. 2006
Was, I think, John Cena.
we gave it to Edge. We gave it to
Edge.
2007 was John Cena.
Yep. Champion all year round.
2008
Oh, Jericho.
Chris Jericho, Y2J, his
Best heel run.
amazing heel run.
I want to see that Jericho back now. I love babyface Jericho, but come on.
2009
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff
so
Hardy,
over.
Yes. 2010 we had
Wade Barrett.
The Nexus.
No, either Wade Barrett or... I would say The Miz. The Miz. The Nexus died a death at SummerSlam.
You had The Miz. I threw Kane in the hat.
Yes.
Kane had a great year.
Here's the thing with the Nexus and Kane. They had a better latter half of 2010. The Miz, year-round, two-time U.S. champion, Money in the Bank winner, won at WrestleMania. What else did he do? Won the WWE Championship in November. So I would say year-round, The Miz.
2011.
Del Rio.
This kind.
Wait, you almost said
no,
CM Punk?
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Get out of
I'm
here.
sorry.
Get out of
I thought we were gonna say CM Punk. It was Del Rio. It
Yes.
was Del Rio.
Royal Rumble winner,
I
Money in the Bank.
misspoke when I was prefacing this entire segment. 2011 was Del Rio. It was not CM Punk. 2012
Was CM
we
Punk.
gave to CM
I know
Punk.
that 2011 was the year of CM Punk's, when he broke out.
Yep.
But I would say that was like 1 or 2 months, though, before they killed it off that fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he won the WWE title in November, but he was champion for the entire calendar
Every
year.
single day of 2012 saw CM Punk as champion.
So absolutely, 2012. And his epic heel turn.
Yep.
His awesome matches with Daniel Bryan and John
Yeah.
Cena, CM Punk.
CM Punk in 2012, 2013 we gave to
Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
Yes.
And that was actually the Slammy Superstar of the Year.
Yes, which was actually legitimate this time around.
And John Cena, when John Cena won 2012, was just the biggest.
What
joke.
an absolute joke. And then he gave it to Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Like he did the big gold belt a couple of weeks ago.
And 2014, Brock
Lesnar.
Yep, we gave it to him because of his WrestleMania victory, as I said, and he's now a 4-time world champion, and he's looking to carry the strap in 2015.
If you don't want to do repeats, I would give it to right now. It depends what happens in 2015. I would give it to any member of the Shield. I don't know if every member, if we're talking particular here, like specifics, it's really hard to say because Roman Reigns broke the record at Royal Rumble.
But I mean, I think that their time is coming up and that they'll have their own years soon to come when they really break out,
And win their first world championships.
Exactly.
And with Seth Rollins, if he wins the world title later this year, if he cashes in, which I don't think he will or should, if he does, though, I think it could be his year.
He would claim the year.
Yes. Join the Authority. I did actually some research. Seth Rollins had not lost a match via pinfall since his matchup with CM Punk in the December 30th edition of Monday Night Raw.
Wow. So he hasn't lost it all this year.
The only loss that he had gotten until that matchup, or since that matchup, was against Heath Slater a couple of weeks ago.
There you go.
That was the only matchup he's lost this year. Now he's losing to Los Matadores.
Yep.
Heath Slater, that is, not Seth Rollins. But that's going to do it.
Awesome.
Let's see if we can run it down real quick.
All right, really, really quick. 85, Piper. 86.
We'll go back and forth
All
here.
right. 85.
Roddy Piper.
86. On to the Giant.
87, Hulk Hogan.
88.
Where?
Who do we have? Was it Jake?
88 was... Oh, no, I'm sorry.
88 was Randy. 80 was Savage. 89
was... I'm messing up here. What the fuck is 89? Oh, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Jake. 90, Warrior. 91, Taker. 92.
You're messing me up here. 92,
Zuna.
Ric Flair.
92 was Ric Flair. 93.
93, Lex Luger.
94.
Bret Hart.
95.
Diesel.
96.
Shawn Michaels.
97. Mankind. 98.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
99.
Rock.
2000.
Triple H.
2001.
Kurt Angle.
2002.
Brock Lesnar.
2003.
Ooh, who do we say for
Goldberg. 2004.
Ooh, Randy Orton or Chris Benoit.
Benoit. 2005.
Batista.
2006.
John Cena.
Edge.
I'm missing 06 and 07.
2007.
John Cena.
2008.
Chris Jericho.
2009.
Jeff Hardy.
2010.
The Miz.
2011.
Alberto Del Rio.
2012.
CM Punk.
2013.
Daniel Bryan.
And 2014.
Brock Lesnar.
There you
That
have
is
it,
subject
sir.
to change. Subject to change.
There you have it.
30 of the best superstars of all time, with Miz being number 38 before anyone ever says it, and
my
Del Rio
God.
maybe being 29.
Lex Luger's 29.
There we go. Make an article out of that, folks.
There you
Beautiful
go.
list right there. Enough for discussion as well. Tweet us on Twitter if you want to rival that list. At WrestleRant, at Heel by Design. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of WrestleRant Radio. The final episode you will hear at Heel by Design on here live. Hopefully we can have you on over the phone one of these weeks.
That would be awesome.
But an awesome follow-up interview. Our 4-part interview, if you want to include the last 2 parts from last month. But with that being said, a lot of great discussion. We discussed pretty much everything, all the talking points, a few things here and there we didn't get to, but we pretty much covered it all. But with that being said, John, thanks for being on the show.
Ram, thank you for having me, man. It was a great 4-parter.
Absolutely. We've been sitting here for the last 12 hours watching the WWE Network, one of the most shitty episodes of Raw I've ever seen in my life, and talking right here on WrestleRant Radio for you folks. So, much like every episode we've had John on, it's time for the cheap plugs. Cheap plug time. John, go right ahead.
All right, you guys can follow me on the Twitter at Heel by Design. That's at Heel by Design. And for those of you who haven't read my new column, John's Jargon, you can go to
NextEraWrestling.weebly.com
or at sbchive.blogspot.com to read my hit article, John's Jargon. I put a lot of work in it, so if you could please give it a read, that would be much appreciated.
And by this point in time, his newest article, The Longevity of Pay-Per-Views, is up by this point in time. This episode's going to be up on September 2nd. So he's working on it as we speak. Literally, as I'm talking, he's writing it. Actually, I'm lying. He has a cereal bowl in his hand right now. He's about to walk away. But that being said,
I need some cereal.
he needs his cereal. With his Just Bring a t-shirt on, he's about to go lay at the SmackDown and find out what the mom is cooking in the kitchen.
On the Cocoa Krispies. I love the SmackDown.
He's laying the SmackDown on the Cooked Krispies. So with that being said, thanks, folks, for listening to WrestleRant Radio this week. We will have at Heel by Design John Nichols on a future episode, whether it be over the phone, in person. Hopefully we can catch up for a Survivor Series, hopefully, which is not a shitty show again this November and a couple months away. But that's going to do it at Heel WrestleRant, at WrestleRant on the Twitter, at Heel by Design. We just had our baby on Twitter. At WrestleRant for me.
Heel Wrestle. Wrestle or Rant by Design.
Rant by Design. At Heel by Design on the Twitter. You can follow John. At WrestleRant, you can follow me. That's going to do it. NextEraWrestling.weebly.com. You can find John's Jargon, many more articles in every new episode of WrestleRant Radio. We'll catch you next week, folks. For John Nichols, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and we'll see you then.